We got to mix the mission statement with the idea that everything is relevant. Our stand-up is relevant. Living in New York is relevant because it's all how to deal with day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Is that generally it? Yeah. And how the littlest things in the world ruin your whole outlook on life just because of one day when it's really not that big of a deal, but we've got to find a way to deal with our fucking anger, basically.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Power of How. I've gotten to the point where do I need to say everybody's name every time? Brennan Tassif,
hey.
Daniel Torado. This is the last week I'm doing it. I want people to know. I want people to look it up.
What's in everything?
Anybody got anything light to start out with? All right, then. I was just at home, which, Daniel, you go home a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I live there.
Yeah, I mean, you go to Montreal a lot, right?
Yeah, well, twice, 3 times a year.
Yeah, we should open the windows. What? Or you think we should keep them closed?
Well, I just shut them because of the construction.
Yeah.
It was insane. But if you want, I'll
open.
Is
it insane? What do you think?
I'm hot.
I'm hot as fuck.
I'm hot too.
Yeah.
All right.
We
honestly, I just looked at them. They were closed. I was like, what happened?
Because when you were listening to the song, they were like, Rrr. So Daniel was like, oh, it's going to be a little warm, but we should close these.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how warm it was going to get. And the second he closed them, I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, the thing about it is, I got headphones. We all get headphones. And we'll know if it's too much.
Yeah. Well, we can edit it out, too.
Oh, well, we can't edit out the construction.
Yeah, right. I wanted to sound like, we'll take it out in post.
That's amateur filmmaker shit.
Yeah.
We'll take out the bad audio later.
Do we?
Welcome to the Power of How. I'm Matt Fulcheron. I'm here with Brennan Tassif. I'm here with Daniel Torado.
How you doing?
Not quite hot.
No, better.
It's humid.
It's
Luckily,
so humid.
we're not in Texas or New Orleans right now. Do you know what's going on down there?
No, what happened?
It's 115 degrees.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Down there in America.
That's New Orleans especially. That's a swamp. It's like Florida. It gets humid, sticky.
I don't know if you've ever been to Texas.
No.
It's just a goddamn oven. At least New Orleans has some water nearby.
Yeah, that's true.
Woo.
New York is bad in August.
New York is bad right now.
Is it?
Well, you saw me.
Yeah. But you took the subway.
Yeah, I was standing outside and I had my tank top on. Yeah. And I was like, I got to switch into my show shirt and I just pointed and I'm just dripping sweat.
No, it's gross. And we
love gross.
We ditched our old air conditioner because it wasn't really working. Mm-hmm. You ever get to that point with an air conditioner?
Yeah.
Where it's just we're done. I'm done. This is a whole life that I've lived. And we got rid of it and we were like, well, we'll get another one. But then we keep going out of town. It's never a good time to order. And because I'm going to be leaving for the next 2 weeks, basically. And, you don't want to order the shit while you're out of town. Because then it'll just sit in the hallway.
Yeah.
And then somebody gets a free air conditioner. And then also it's been so cool this whole month.
It has been.
I've just been we've just been taking it for granted. Mm-hmm. I went home for a couple days. And the reason I want to bring this up on this podcast is because this is before we started the podcast, Daniel. We were talking about this down at the coffee shop that we used to meet at. And whenever I go home, I'm reminded, I see my skateboard trophies. I see, it just reminds me.
The life that could have been.
Well, not the life that could have been, but the life that was.
Yeah.
And the life that was where you're supposed to be in life creatively. It was excited about what was out there, curious about going places.
Yeah.
Excited about what was to be.
It's immortality, man.
And then also just a clean slate, and you haven't done anything yet, so you haven't experienced the negative that goes with the positive, or at least the things that make you feel
full of hope.
Yeah, and it's just when you get older, you start to play defense more. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to experience, you can almost try not to experience sometimes. You can be like, I don't want to do this, that, and the other because I don't want to deal with the commotion of it. I don't want to deal with this. But when you're young, you're just like, fuck it, I'll take everything that comes. And half the stuff that is, let's use the word negative, is like in hindsight. You go, oh yeah, that was bad for me.
Right. Right.
Like 20 years later, you're just like, oh, that affected me poorly. Yeah. At the time, you don't even realize it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's I think it's fascinating how I think it's the illusion of immortality when we're young. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like Biden is how old is he?
He's 80-something.
He's 80-something, right?
Yeah.
So he's approaching death.
Yeah.
Logically speaking.
Right.
And at that age, all you think about is mortality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we got something bad with the mic. I think that mic might be facing its mortality. Hold on a second. I got a replacement. All right. For the listeners, that's 2 counts.
Back.
That's 2 counts.
Yeah.
That's 2 strikes. All noise related. So Biden's ancient.
So
let's get back on track.
No, but what I wanted to say was how can you run a country when the first thing you're going to worry about is your mortality?
You think he's worried about his mortality?
Well, I think anyone at that age is going to...
It's got to be top of mind.
Well, yeah. This is strike 3, I think. I think we made it to strike 3.
We're good.
No, it's fine.
No, I think it's strike 3.
The show must go on.
Yeah. The show must go on. I think when you reach that age... No, I think this is even... There's something off about this mic.
That mic's bad too?
Yeah, it's not...
I can't.
Okay, maybe it's fading. Let me see if I have another mic.
Strike 3?
Well, we'll see.
We're going to keep going. Hey, I don't play baseball. We get as many strikes as we want.
Okay, mic check.
Check. Yeah, that's way better.
I almost feel like we should start over, but I'm so tired already.
I was going to say, we got time if we want to use that.
How are we going to get this done?
No, listen. I was telling...
I think we should be talking about construction.
I was telling my wife we need to start using the studio again anyway. Because...
this is like the universe is shouting out to us.
I was already there before you guys got here because my wife's working from home now for the summer.
Oh, nice.
And
or not, I don't know.
Well, it's not good for the podcast because then she has to cram into that little room.
Yeah.
And if you think it's hot right here.
God.
Right.
Yeah, it's it's a torture chamber in there. Not to mention the cat litter.
I wanted to... Have you guys heard it just... real quick, because when you said that, it really sparked something in my head. I've heard this before, and I can't remember if I read it or it definitely wasn't on a podcast, but this idea that growing up, we're open to so many things.
Yeah.
And that's actually how we end up getting the things. But as we get older, we're so defensive to hang on to what we have that we lose sight of how we got it in the first place. Yeah. So then that ends up slipping away. It's almost like a negative... or a positive attracts negativity kind of, you know what I mean though? Like especially like when I was first in comedy and I was so excited and I was taking all these shitty gigs and doing all this stuff and it's ended up with me in New York and now I'm so desperate to like hang on to like what I have, which isn't very much, that I find myself in situations where I'm saying no to things that in the past I would have said yes to, be it a bringer show or like a produced show at a bar. And I'm like, or like the great example is the roast. Where I was like, I don't do roast. And then I did it, and then I was like, oh, this is why I don't do it. But at least I was open to that. And I think there's something in that, you know, you work so hard to get what you have, and then you try so hard to hang on to it that you forget how you got it in the first place.
And I think it's your energy when you're playing defense essentially.
Yeah, I like when you said that, and I like that.
Instead of going after it, you're being kind of conservative.
Yeah, we see it all the time in sports.
Yeah,
when people are like, "Oh, you know, we're up by 2 touchdowns, let's play prevent," and then all of a sudden they're losing. I mean, the greatest example. I don't know if anyone listening watches sports, but the Atlanta Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. when the Patriots were down by 28 points. Yeah. And instead of Atlanta just doing what they were doing the whole game, they were like, all right, now we're going to play deep, like we're going to play prevent. We're going to make sure they just can't score. Right. And Tom Brady was like, oh, this is way easier to play against than what you were doing before. And then they won.
Yep. My Bills are the Falcons. And my money is the Patriots. Yeah. In that game.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The Bills always get high, and then at the last minute, I'm like, how am I going to win this?
I got it. Right. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I think it's the secret is to just not give a fuck. You know, you lose that. When we start, we have like that I don't give a fuck in me. And then the more we do it, the more we give a fuck. Yes. And the more we give a fuck, the more we penetrate the realm of fear. Uh-huh. And then we get stuck in it. And it's exactly what you were saying. It's like playing defense. And my example with Biden is, think about it. You're 80 some odd years, right? Uh-huh. And you can't help at that age but to think of your own mortality, because that's like the main thing every day. So if that's your main focus, it's just, how am I going to stay alive another day? How the fuck can you run a country when all you can think of mainly is how am I going to make it through this week, this month? Because and I'm not hitting, it's not a jab at Biden or I'm just saying no president should be that age. Okay. Yeah. You know what I mean?
You are assuming that is his daily mental, where he's coming from.
I can't, I'm not.
You can't imagine.
Wait, well, listen. Yeah, you're right. Of course.
And also it's like, that could be a good way to avoid thinking about your mortality is think about the mortality or immortality of this country, to like go after it. I don't know what he's thinking either. I know that
so you're saying that to keep his focus out of mortality,
I think most of what we do, I think I heard Jerry Seinfeld say it, most of what we do on this earth is to avoid thinking about our own mortality. Yeah. And I think that's a pretty busy job. I think he might not be focused on his mortality. I also think there's no way we can know for sure. And then we'd have to be 80 before we knew if that's true or not. Yeah. Because I'm also familiar with the concept that I don't really feel like I'm turning 49 this year. Mm-hmm. I know that I am. The doctor tells me I am. Right. But I'm proceeding as if in some ways, I'm proceeding as if I'm young. I still want some of the same things I had when I was young, or some of the same things I wanted when I was young, and I'm still going after them. I'm still trying to appear young. I'm still trying to stay healthy. I'm still avoiding the idea that I'm gonna die. I'm not even thinking about it because
you can also pull it off. Yeah, you look young, you behave young, you have a youthful spirit. And when you're a teenager, you don't worry about these things. You don't even think about death. I don't think you spend most of your life avoiding death. I don't know if I agree with that. With what Seinfeld said, I agree with that at a certain point in your life when you hit midlife. But as a kid, man, mortality is the last thing on your mind unless you're like Woody Allen.
You know what? Yeah, that's right. Right? Yeah. But I didn't have my own mortality on my mind when I was a kid, but there was a point where I was maybe around 10 where I'm I just kept looking in the mirror going, I'm going to be an old man one day. Right. And just looking at my face, trying to figure out what that was going to look like. Yeah.
But it didn't concern you.
It did freak me out a little bit.
For a few seconds.
But yeah, then you're out of the. Yeah. You're not in front of the mirror anymore, and you're just
right. Yeah. But then when you hit my parents' age, and you're retired, and you no longer have a career or a full-time job, and you see your kids grow and your grandchildren grow, and I can't imagine. And you're right. I'm assuming. But it's also speaking with older people that's a thing that's inevitable. You can't not think of it. How to prepare for your children once you're gone, how to prepare for your grandchildren. What do you want to leave behind? What legacy or what thing? It could be anything. It could, it could be a physical thing. It could be a message, whatever it is. But I think we all want to leave something behind.
A legacy.
Whatever it is. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. But I think we want to pass on something.
But that could be good too, right?
That could be wonderful.
But even for Biden, if he wants a legacy, this is his last chance, obviously. I'm just asking. I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to say exactly about. You're saying that his age affects his job and he's not doing a good job. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just paralleling when you're getting older, you play defense.
Right.
Whereas, again, this is not a political jab or anything. I don't give a shit about that. It's more about, when you're young, you don't care. You have that freedom of not caring. You can't fail. You just can't if you believe in yourself. Whereas when you're older, you do play defense. And how can you move forward when you're always playing defense?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I meant. I was just paralleling that.
Yeah, I do know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but as far as this job's concerned, I do remember Obama on Mark Maron's podcast talking about you kind of have to play defense as president. You can't go too far in one direction or people fucking freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you said about the immortality thing as a child, because I don't know if it's the depression, and I don't want to take it too negative, but that's something that I think about and have thought about since I was 17. And I remember the day, and we were talking about this as we were walking up the stairs, but it was I don't want to do this anymore kind of a thing. And it's weird to get through that and then get older, and then obviously with my alcoholism and drug addiction to end up in the hospital as many times as I did and stuff, because I look at my peers, because I'm 35 now, and I look at some of the younger people that I'm around at Mike's and stuff like that, and it's so weird to me to look at them and go, oh, you're like you said, you don't think you're ever going to die. And it's something I've thought about every day since I was 17.
Right.
It was something that was a big point of contention in my last relationship, because every day you earn the day. Like we talked about last week. I'd get up and be like, this is what I have to get done today. And my ex would be like, oh, I just kind of want to hang out and watch reruns of TV and relax. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I've got a checklist.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that drive, because I see other people who have a similar drive that I do, and they haven't gone through this kind of stuff. But I don't know I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg. I don't know if the near death is what drives me because I realize how short life is, or if it's I'm a driven person and then I also happen to have that experience.
I think you're a driven person, and I think your alcoholism may be that you were kind of sick of being a driven person, and it was nice to just avoid, because that was trying to be a good football player, trying to be a good everything.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
it's it's just a way to go in that direction.
It's a great way to shut off my brain. It was because it's funny you say that, because now thinking about it, when I would drink, all I would do is sit around and just watch reruns on Netflix and drink.
And it's fun to avoid.
Yeah.
It's fun to avoid
everything.
Your life.
Yeah.
And it feels good. But then at a certain point you have to get back into your life. Mm-hmm. And it's like playing double dutch. It's where the fuck do I jump back into it?
Yeah. It's almost like avoiding, or a fear of success, or a fear of failure.
Yeah. All of it.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah. It's
fear of trying, just a fear of putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it's weird too, because everyone, and Matt, you and I have talked about this, and Daniel, I'm sure you've had the same experience, but everyone I talk to who's successful, a lot of people say the same thing. I was trying to do this, I was trying to do that, and then the day I realized I'm just going to fucking do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And stop caring so much about everything else, is the day that it was almost like a freedom, where they were and then things start happening, and then all of a sudden you start getting little successes that grow into bigger successes. And that's something, as free-spirited as I might come off, and some of the stuff I talk about on stage obviously isn't really relatable for a lot of people, but at the same time, I'm the kind of guy who's sitting over his computer I can't clip that, I can't put that on the internet, I can't do that. And it's why nobody watches it anyway? Who fucking cares?
Right.
Yeah, it's become the same level as just a conversation on the street.
Yeah.
It's certain people are listening, certain people aren't.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's weird. I totally get what you mean, but there's also a contradiction in saying, like the freedom of wanting to do whatever you want to do. Because I think at a deeper level, as soon as you want something, you're no longer free.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
you become
100%.
a slave.
That's a basic thing, right?
You become a slave to your desires. You become a slave to your dream. And you feel like, I came to New York. I had the freedom to do this. I'm following this. But sometimes I wonder, are we following it, or are we, or is it, the very fact of following something, right?
By definition,
it's no
you're
longer
not free.
freedom. Yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah. So it's really messed up because it's such in a way, and I think we're all victims, if you want to say this.
I think so.
We're all victims of being enslaved by our dream, and which is zero freedom, as much as it appears to like the 9-to-5er that this is, you're so lucky.
It's insane when people, like, we've talked about this before, and I know all three of us are in the same boat. Hey, what are you doing today? Oh, well, I'm off from the restaurant. Okay, cool. Like, do you want to hang out? Well, no, I've got a podcast to record. I have clips to cut. Right. I have mics to hit, and then I have a show tonight. I don't have the day.
Right.
And it's so, I love that you brought this up, because this is something I'm experiencing right now, where I feel like I have this freedom. It's a facade, though. I moved to New York, and I'm like, I'm doing comedy, I'm doing the podcast. And then, as I've talked about ad nauseum on this show, things happened all in the same month between the move, the breakup, and then the one-man show. And I've put myself in a hole, and I put myself there, and I'm going to figure it out. But it's so interesting, because I'm like, I can't get a day job, because that's when I record. That's when I cut. I'm literally putting myself in a worse financial spot because of this dream.
Right.
And it's like, just get a day job for 3 months. You can still do everything else. Just reprioritize your time. But in my head, this dream has me like shackled to where I'm like, no, I'd rather suffer and eat ramen noodles and like.
That's a nightmare.
But you know what I'm saying?
Like, no longer a dream, man.
All because of comedy.
For the comic, for the artist, a midlife crisis is getting an insurance job. And just working that 9-to-5, and then at 5 o'clock, you clock out, and then you get to live your life.
Yeah. And you know what? That's what I love about Pryor and Carlin, because if we want to talk about freedom, that I can think of, and I'm sure there are more out there, but that everyone knows. Those are like the two comics that I can think of that reinvented themselves in terms of being like this clean, comedian into just becoming this like a beat poet,
an artist, an improv actor, an intellectual,
right? Going from Pryor wanting to be Cosby to Pryor wanting to be Pryor, and Carlin the same thing. He just he really transformed into almost like he had like this not giving a fuck anymore, which is the real freedom.
And he went through the phase too. Yeah, it wasn't like
physically the way he dressed. But
I'm talking about success wise. He went through the phase of transition, which was brutal because he had a mortgage payment and the whole deal.
Yeah, they talk about that on the documentary.
He couldn't play the Playboy clubs anymore. He couldn't. He got fired from all these places that made him money. And he had to find that. There was this time he had to like almost give up on that dream in a way, and he had to take that leap because before him there was no Carlin, and it was the same time as Pryor, so there was no like, oh well, I'll just do this type of comedy now. Yeah, it was like he had to come up with a new way to do comedy. Right, and if that didn't work, he wasn't going to be a comic anymore, and he didn't know if there's going to be an audience for it or not.
It's so weird because when is the time? You just mentioned if it doesn't work, he would give up. And it's like, when is the time where you can...
When you can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And...
is it that, or is it like it could be also a peaceful knowing. Yeah. It could be like a detachment. Yeah. A falling out of love. I believe. I don't think it's just like you can't take the pressure. Some people just don't want it anymore, or it's just not. We talked about this many times.
But like that's where it leads. It doesn't have to be okay. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm doing this now. It could be like this led to this.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't have to be.
Well, I've seen that in the one man show kind of thing, where I've talked to people who have one person shows and. the 3 or 4 people I've talked to about it all said the same thing, where they were like, "Oh, I started as a comic, and then this happened, and I'm still doing comedy. It's just not traditional stand-up, and it kind of morphed into what they do now." But I have this very deep-seated understanding. Understanding is the wrong word, but just this truth, I guess, that I always try to live by, which is, as long as you don't quit, for me, as long as I don't quit, it's going to work. And the stresses of, like, obviously, like we were just talking about with the financial stuff and like paying the bills and everything, it really makes me want to quit, but I can't.
Yeah.
If I'm not on stage for more, even at shitty mics, if I don't get on stage with a microphone for more than 2 days, I feel lost.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, I'll just keep going. But it's so clear to me how people can be like, "Oh no, I just stopped."
Yeah.
Because it's like we've been talking about this whole episode. We are totally embedded, entrenched, and enslaved to this idea of, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it. And for me, it's an even lower level where I'm still doing like mics and bar show, and it's like I have to, like, something has to hit. I was talking the other day to somebody, and I was like, "Yeah, I spend 40 to 60 hours a week on podcasting and stand up and all that like creative stuff, about 40 to 60." And then I realized, like, it has to. Statistically speaking, it has to hit.
Yeah.
But I can see why it's so calming for people to be like, "Never mind, I'm out."
I think it's valid to consider that.
Yeah.
We act like
To consider what?
to consider quitting, doing something different with your
Stepping
life,
away,
or just to negate what we said 2 weeks ago. Just work on it whenever you want to.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Right.
But could it make you happier?
Yeah, but what? Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking myself right now.
What?
And I think it does go back to when you're a kid. You do it whenever you're in the mood.
Yeah.
Which is not professional, but it sure is fucking fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and this is very cultural, but we judge success, we judge wealth by our social status, our finances, and that is not the definition. It is the definition of success in America, but it is not to be successful. Personally, I think is someone who is happy and at peace with themselves. I can't stop but think of. Have you ever read a book called a play called Rainmaker?
No.
Rainmaker. So it's a play, and the main character is called Starbuck, and he's like a rainmaker, or he pretends he's like a fake rainmaker, and he falls.
Is that a literal term? I don't know Rainmaker.
Like a rain who makes. He's kind of like a showman who
makes it rain.
Yeah, who
I was thinking in the 2023 sense, like he walks into bars and he's like,
he goes to strip club. He goes to strip club. Yeah, that would be a different play. Not Broadway.
We could go see that.
No, that'd be in Atlanta or Houston or something. Yeah.
So he shows up, and a whole town he'll claim that he'll be able to make it rain, and people fall in love. It's a little bit like that Steve Martin movie where he plays a con artist, like a preacher,
or like The Music Man, right?
Right. So, and he falls in love with this girl. I believe her name is Lindsay, and he says, there's a scene in the play where he just makes fun of Lindsay. He kind of belittles her. He's like, "Look at that name, Lindsay. Like, what kind of name is that? You could be anyone. You could, you can choose your name. You can make your name. Your name could be Cleopatra or Desdemona. You can have a great, beautiful name like me. I'm Starbuck. And then she says, "Well, that's your dream. I have different dreams. My dream of happiness is like ironing a shirt and making the shirts well pressed, and feeding my family." And so those are two very different definitions of success. And one is just in the littlest things, which I find so beautiful and so, I guess, authentic. And what really matters, again, it goes back to like making the dishes, and try to find the happiness in doing that. And that, to me, if I can attain that, man, just that peace of mind, and whatever I do, like right now, being here with you guys, and so happy to to just be with we're doing this,
and that is the way to do it,
and to have no outcome. Like, I don't give a fuck if we have 3 listeners. We're reaching 3 listeners. If we have, we just
What's
got
up
the
in
news
Estonia?
Well, we just found out yesterday or today that
I got the email today
that we had 5,000 downloads, and it's wonderful. And whether it's 5,000 or 10 or 500,000, we're doing this. It comes from a good place,
right?
And when we leave this room, we leave happier and more fulfilled.
I always feel better.
So I think that's the key to just whatever you do, to just follow what makes you feel blissful, and or find the bliss in whatever you do.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, I need to make it, and just they're so polluted, that word.
I know,
make it.
And I really fell for it.
Well, we all did.
But it's just interesting that
some of us are still falling for it right now. As
we're doing this,
as happy as this makes us,
but to let it go, to not be haunted by that goal.
But it's interesting. Like, as an American, you're saying this is an American thing.
Yeah,
and I believe culturally because no one ever said like, hey, you shouldn't chase your dreams.
Yeah,
except for like, not in a direct way.
Right.
They might say you suck.
Right.
They might say quit, but it's not the same thing.
Right.
In fact, they usually don't say quit. They just say you suck.
Yeah.
Keep going, so I have something to hate.
Right. And still enjoy.
Right. And so it's just interesting, this idea that, and it's hard to shake, and I'm still kind of shaking it every day, is this idea that, like, and we talk about this a lot, when you get to a certain place, all your problems will be solved.
Yeah.
It's an illusion.
And it's just not that way, because it's almost like a roller coaster. You do get those moments of satisfaction, and then they're just gone. Whereas if you can find a way to be happy with everything that you have, that's why I write down what I'm thankful for every day, is because I know that's what it's about. It's more of a strong and steady, and it's not about what you don't have. It's about what you do have.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I think the problem is we're always chasing what we don't have. If you're poor, you want to be rich. If you're rich, you want to be good looking. If you're good looking and rich, you want to be famous. If you're famous, good looking,
you want to go to space.
You want to kill yourself.
Right.
But that's what ends up happening. Like you that's Marilyn Monroe, and it's all these. It's like you have everything in terms of appearance, in terms of image. You have the looks, you have the talent, you have the money, you have the fame. You seem to have it all, and to be so miserable.
Yeah.
So and dead at 36.
You see Howard Stern, like he always talks about, he has a lot of pride in his success and being famous. He openly loves being famous. But he's still a miserable guy for a lot of the day.
Yeah.
There's people that come into the restaurant. I mean, I won't say any names, but they're incredibly successful.
Yeah.
And they're not rude. They're just, they seem miserable.
Yeah.
They have that vibe of like, I hate it here, just in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you're you. Like, how can you? But I think that's a great point. And to what we talk about how this podcast can really open our eyes to certain things. Daniel and Matt, you just really made me realize something, talking about the cultural differences between certain places. Success I measure as, can I sustain a lifestyle or just living by doing the things I'm passionate about, the podcast, comedy, things like that.
Yeah.
And at this point, I am not doing that. But that's how I measure success, because I grew up in a very capitalistic society.
Right.
So for me, it's about financially, can you manage to do what you're doing?
Yeah.
And, is it no longer a hobby, basically? But it's interesting that you say that, the feeling inside. There are mics that I walk into and people light up because I'm a loud laugher and I pay attention.
Yeah.
People go, Brennan's here.
Yeah.
Brennan's here.
Yeah.
And I've been in New York 2 years.
Right.
And I'll walk into places where people have been here for 5 years and they're still doing mics. When they walk in, everyone's just like, oh, hey, what's up? When I walk in, people literally will go, oh my God, Brennan's here.
Right.
And in my head, I'm so fucked that to me, that doesn't seem like success. That just seems like, yeah, I'm here.
Right.
But that's the most successful. I am a part of the New York comedy community.
Yeah.
Which is all I ever wanted.
Right.
But in my head, I'm like, no, you're doing one bar show this week. Like you're nobody. You're nothing.
Right.
But then I go into the GM of the Comedy Cellar came into the restaurant, and one of the servers, I wasn't there, and one of the servers goes, "Oh, do you know Brennan? He does comedy." And one of the most, I guess, powerful, I don't know the right word, people in New York comedy looked at him and she goes, "Everybody knows Brennan."
That's cool.
That's fucking successful.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But in my head, I go, yeah, but I'm not past there, so who fucking cares?
Right.
Which is so toxic.
And what's comparison, right?
Yeah.
Comparison is
the thief of joy.
And you can compare it to potential.
Yeah.
You can compare it to what could be or somebody else.
And also the huge trap of, I think this is very dangerous, and to, I guess, judge your self-worth through the eyes of the other, or of one other person. Like, no person should have the power to or the responsibility over your happiness.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like it's not relevant. And you spoke with the word passion, and again, I think this is cultural. It's like passion, but passion is rooted in being passive, and a lot of people confuse love with passion, and I think they're the complete opposites. I think love is nothing but action, and again, in movies, romantic movies, passion is like it's equated with love, and it's such a skewed notion of what true love is and what true understanding and true patience and they're just opposites. It's like fucking opposites. And you go to Japan, for example, because I know a lot about the Japanese culture because my wife is half Japanese. I've visited Japan. I've studied a lot of things about Japan and like, for example, like protests in Japan. If you want to protest, I think this I forget what car company it was, but the workers were protesting against the boss. And what do? They don't strike. They don't go on the street and not work. The Japanese would work harder. They work twice as hard. They produce twice as much, and it drives the boss crazy. Right. They're
Fuck
like,
you,
I
boss.
can't believe they're producing so much. This is so bad. This is so wrong. and they know it's torturing the boss because they're working. In America, they'd be like, I want you striking all the time.
One guy would take all the credit for that.
Right.
He's like, I know how to get these fuckers in line. You don't pay them.
So
it's an honor thing over there.
Yeah, it's an honor thing. It's also a world of opposites. It's like you can't smoke outdoors because you pollute the environment, so everybody smokes indoors. That's in restaurants, or like in every you could be having a great meal, dude's like blowing smoke next
Love
to you.
it.
All over your fresh fish.
Right. And it's just we're really stuck in this. It's such a fucking microcosm. I'm sorry if I'm cursing a lot today.
That's fine.
I think I have a lot of.
I've been cursing over you.
Subconscious anger, but I think it's a microcosm that we live in a bubble. Just like New York, we think, New York is the center of the world. It's like, no. Have you ever been to Tokyo? It's like twice as big as and striking as New York. And yet we have this illusion that America is the center of the world, New York is the center of America, and it's not. It's not reflective of the rest of the country. It's not representative of different cultures in the country. It's just one side. Yeah. And we get stuck into this. As soon as we leave New York, how happy are we?
Oh,
And then we when I first moved here, and I was 21, and I would go back to Montreal, I would have a complex of superiority. Mm-hmm. I would feel superior.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I moved, I left this village.
Yeah.
And I am back, and people, and mind you, people would feed into that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Without even
every
saying
time I go home. Yeah.
How's New York? How's the other side? How's the jungle? And it's like, and there was great pride in the move. But again, pride, it's a mortal sin.
Yeah. Right. Comes before the fall.
But it's that was so smooth.
It's the summer of sins.
Right. So and it's
it's like a nice vacation from being mediocre.
Right. And you feel like you just feel better, and then with time, you realize it's bullshit.
I realized that this time around. I went to
doesn't matter.
First of all, I went to a Mexican restaurant with my family. And I remember thinking, because we had, my
you call this
brother,
Mexican?
That's exactly the attitude I went in with.
Yep.
I was like, because my nieces and my sister-in-law were coming in from California. I'm like, they're not gonna like this Mexican food,
Yeah.
They're from California, and went there, and totally authentic. It's fun, like much more than I thought it would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Based on the people that were running it and how good the food was. And I immediately gave it up. I'm like, this place is great.
Yeah.
And then second of all, I saw some people that I knew from high school and stuff. And in my past, I've always been like, suckers, stayed here. But I'm looking at them and I'm like, they're just where I'm trying to get. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm trying to get to a point now that I'm married, to a point where like I can just do my job and have my space and like live a non-eventful life in a way. And I looked at them and I'm like, how did they get it so right so quick? Mm-hmm. They had a different idea of what they wanted to do, but I came to the conclusion that...
But you're also assuming that, because for all you know, they could be miserable.
They're looking at it differently. They might have looked at me like, man, Matt got out.
Yeah.
But I at least I'm coming to a non-judgmental, or I guess it's judgmental, but I'm judging it as, well, this has a lot to offer. Yeah. This life has a lot to offer. And if they just wait 25 years, they'll get authentic Mexican food.
Well, it's one of those, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Again, this goes back to, I don't know if it's the way I'm wired or something, but I look at my sisters, both married. One has a kid on the way. My twin sister has 2 kids, house, the husband. And immediately, when I started back into comedy and got sober and everything, I was like, suckers. Same thing.
Yeah.
And now it's only been 5 years sober, but I'm like, I look at what they have, and I know I can't do that because, like I said earlier, about like if I'm just off stage for a few days, I start to go stir crazy.
Yeah.
So I know that's not my path, but there's a part of me that's envious, and there is a big part of me that feels bad for judging them in the first place. Mm-hmm. My twin sister will text me with like pictures of my nieces, her daughters, and be like, oh my God, you're never going to believe what Skylar did today. And she gets so much joy out of it. Right. A joy I have not experienced very often. The joy that comes with like crushing a set or something. Like she gets that every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
I do think you get that joy, whether you know it or not, when you write like 30 seconds... That really works.
That's a good bit. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
it's like watching a trial go.
Yeah.
Well, you're also in the realm of creation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there is something about New York that makes you think that you're better than other people. But you want to hear something crazy? When I was 23. And I was straight out of acting school, right? So all I did would be study people and pretend to be someone else. And I'd go to a bar and I'd pretend to be French, for example, and just speak with a lousy English accent and try to seduce someone.
Yeah.
And I'd have my scarf and the girl would be like, oh my God.
Anywhere else in the world, that's a crime.
I was going to say that's considered a crime.
No, but it was also part of the exercises that we were given by teachers. Be someone else wherever you go. You go to a diner, be someone else. Order with an impediment or walk a specific way, and I would buy cards with half of my body almost paralyzed. I'd go around in wheelchairs because we'd have a wheelchair. And
sometimes I'd be drunk at Denny's and I'd pretend like I was an asshole.
So once I was in Montreal and I was in a store and there was this really beautiful girl who was working the store, and I pretended not to speak French, and I'm very fluent in French, and I pretended to be a New Yorker. and she was a small town girl and from a small town outside of Montreal, and she was like, "Oh my God, New York," and she was struggling to speak English. Mm-hmm. She can barely, speak English, and I would try to like be patient, and then I said, "Hey, why don't we grab a drink?" And then she said, "Okay." I'm like, "Oh shit, this worked." So we went to grab a tea, and then I could tell that there was a vibe. Something was happening. Yeah. And I'm like, how long am I going to keep this charade?
No wonder you like Three's Company so much. That's some Jack Tripper shit right there.
So I was like, how far am I going to take this? Because this can go, I can fake it till I make it right. And then...
Baby, I learned French for you. I love you that much.
Do you speak French? So she... after the date, I was like, I gotta be straight up. I speak fluent French, and she was so shocked, and I thought she was gonna slap me and just leave, but she was so relieved. She was like, "Oh my God, we can communicate. I could really tell you what I want to say." And we ended up dating for she went to come see me in New York, and it was just crazy how the illusion of New York, how easy it was to sell, or how easy people would fall into that that aura, and it's bullshit. It's fucking
come visit me in New York. I live in Bushwick.
Yeah,
and I have people. You're in the middle of fucking nowhere.
I have people when I go back
roommates.
home. Yeah, I have people when I go back home. You coming to the stage next. He's a hilarious comic from New York City. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
I'm Brennan.
Yeah.
We're friends. Like, I've known you for 10 years.
I'm from Jacksonville.
If you
I'm from Jacksonville.
You know that.
If you step out of New York,
we met here,
which is insane when you think about it. If you play any city outside of New York, especially in Canada, from New York City becomes a credit.
Oh yeah,
that is the credit.
Which is
who cares about the other credit?
Which is
from New York City,
which is nuts.
It is nuts.
I say it to my dad all the time. I'm like, I'm doing the same exact thing I was doing in Jacksonville. Open mics, shows here and there, working at a restaurant, doing the podcast. He goes, yeah, but you're doing it in the city.
Yeah, and you're doing like 3 times as many shows and stuff.
Yeah, like we're doing a lot of things, but it's like. And I think that's a humbling thing, and that's important for me to try and stay grounded. Is like, dude, you're doing the same stuff. Like, just because I fall into that trap. Like we're talking about, where when I go back home, I'm like, yeah, I fucking suck.
Well, lately I've been getting caught up in the idea, or like shedding the idea of that I am a stand-up comedian. Like for so long, it's like I was a stand-up comedian before I was even a human being.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to
to be a human being.
It's to be the human being who does stand-up.
Yeah. You're Matt.
And that's another thing about being,
because you identify yourself with your career.
Right.
Which
we all do.
Yeah,
we're supposed to do it.
Like when you ask anyone, what do you do? They give you their job description.
It's also one of the first things people ask.
Yeah. But it's
just like a go-to. Mm-hmm. Nice to meet you. So what do you do?
Yeah.
I was reading. I read this a while ago. The Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. Have you read it?
Oh yeah.
Yo, it's a wonderful book.
Some of those stories are so bizarre.
He's insane. He's insane. But he says something that I'll never forget. He talks about I guess the idea of success is just like having a shoeless summer, and just that visually, man. Imagine having a shoeless.
Dude,
summer.
That's what I'm telling. That's what going home did for me this time around.
It's, I just feel like this city can really disconnect you from the source, and it is. It's like it's a city in the middle of wilderness, and everything about the city pulls you away from your authentic self.
Yeah,
everything about it is just survival and. Ignore the other, and just it's self-serving, and it steps on everyone, and it steps on you, and what a lousy way to live.
I did pick up someone's phone for them yesterday.
Did you?
So it's not a completely cold place.
What do you mean?
This woman dropped her phone, and this is after I spent an hour in the DMV. All right, so I should have been in a shitty mood, but I was just happy I got my license. And she dropped her phone, but her hands were full, so I picked it up. There is a community. But I do ultimately see what you're saying, and I think you are right.
Yeah, 100%.
But there are moments
Oh, what kind of phone did she have that he had to give it back?
It was an iPhone. I mean, it wasn't that. I'm not talking about stealing it.
Right now.
I could have been like, fuck you. That's why you dropped it. You got too much shit in your
Yeah.
hands.
You dumb
The Samsung.
Yeah.
This is how different Daniel and I are. I read that book, and the thing that I'll never forget that I took away from it was when Matthew McConaughey was getting ready for Reign of Fire, he was doing shots of tequila and then running like 10 miles in his bare feet, and he got really, really sick from it.
Sure.
That's what I remember.
Shoeless.
Yeah,
Shoeless,
he was
though.
shoeless.
It's a shoeless
So I
summer.
was like, this guy, I got to do movies. He's drinking every day?
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
No one ever said a shoeless summer was perfect.
Yeah. And it's crazy how he got, I remember him mentioning how he got more out of life than he ever dreamt of.
Yeah.
Matt, isn't that the dream, to get more out of life than you can possibly dream of? I think that's so beautiful.
I think people who have that attitude usually are happy.
Yeah.
People that don't expect much more than make a living, be a good family member. I don't know. I think it's a pretty great place to start because it is a foundation.
Right.
And it's usually people that fall ass backwards into shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his biography that he wrote, but I read a thing about Dazed and Confused that said, well, he did really, 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 really try to be part of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about it in his book, it's presented as like, oh, he just saw somebody at a bar and they both golfed and now he's a movie star. But like he went after it just the same. But it's all about attitude.
Yeah.
He could have been going after it like, this would be really cool.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us go after it like, this needs to happen or I'm fucked. And then you get into fear and then you get into...
What would you do, both of you? I'm asking, like, what would you do if you couldn't do comedy?
I'd have gone to law school.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. I'm still very passionate about that kind of stuff.
Still need an audience.
Always.
That'd be a good one. See, that's the problem. I don't know. If I would have thought of it, I would have done it by now. Because like
it's a great way to put it.
The most misery I've faced in this life has been because of this job.
Yeah.
And
yo, isn't that crazy? What you
thought of it?
Some of my worst experiences in life have been on stage.
That is heavy.
Doing my dream, and I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it.
And what makes you like still cling to that?
Because I'm almost like a computer programmed to make jokes, and I just really like writing jokes, and I really like making jokes. But
if you feel more pain than pleasure,
I didn't say I feel more pain.
No, that's what I understood.
I just said some of the most miserable moments in my life have been doing this job, and some of my most miserable thoughts have been trying to be successful, and I think that's separate from doing this job. I think that's something that could affect me anywhere. But I do think this is one of the toughest jobs. And I do feel like, you can be of a certain, you put a lot of work into it, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's like running any other business. All of a sudden it's like, well, we're not looking for that right now.
Yeah.
But then you still have to make a living with the choices you've made.
I think it's the best thing in the world, though.
What?
Comedy. Just because as someone...
Because you're a comic.
Well, no, I've talked about this before.
But a doctor would say...
When I was 12 years old and I was depressed and anxious and couldn't get out of my own way or couldn't get out of my own head and my cousin introduced me to stand-up, I was like, oh, this is amazing.
I will also say that some of my most amazing moments in life have been on stage.
Yeah.
So it's like a high risk. The lows are low and the highs are high. If the question is why am I staying in this, I just keep fucking coming back to it.
I love it.
Every day I come back to it.
When you write a bit and you're like, there's no way this is going to hit, but I think it's funny, and then you do it and it hits and you're like, fucking yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you can realize, like when you can show people that like there's certain bits, I'm sure we've all done. I mean, we've all written some of them. We've all definitely heard them when it's like, I never fucking thought of that.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. Like to me, that bringing that joy to people is the best feeling in the world. When, especially if like with my past, if I talk about something dark and I get a laugh, I'm like, yeah, see, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah. And I think just sometimes the fact that it's created.
Yeah.
The fact that it's like,
nothing.
You can write something that's essentially near perfect, if not perfect, with the right amount of words in it, the right amount of percussion, the right amount of rhythm, misdirection. It can be a beautiful thing. Like a
song.
Like a triple axel from a fucking ice skater.
Yeah.
It can be glorious.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've seen it, man. I've seen it. I've seen people do. I mean, we've all seen people do it. I remember I was trying for years to get this bit about my DUIs like working, and I just couldn't figure it out. And then I watched something on Netflix. A very funny comic did a bit about a DUI, and I go, he fucking nailed it. But it was beautiful to watch because it's some. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, damn it, why didn't I think of that? But there's a bigger part of me who was like, he did it.
Yeah.
And it was so effortless, and the audience it crushed, and I was like, yeah. Like, I think comedy and music are the two biggest things that show that we are all connected. Mm-hmm. Sense of humor, laughter can create this feeling of togetherness.
Yeah.
And you could be talking about the most absurd things.
Right.
And when everybody laughs or most people laugh, you're like, yeah. So we've all felt this way.
Yeah.
Whether it's not the same situation, but that feeling we felt, that feeling, we've all felt it.
And that is, I was just reading about this last night. That is can be a main misery in this life, is feeling like only you're the one going through problems, or even only you're the one annoyed with something. The fact that you feel alone when that's why people like church. That's why people like
together.
Whatever it is, that's like they love being part of a group, and feeling that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know,
even that's neighborhoods,
right?
Yeah, you know, that's
that sense of community.
And I was also reading that like the traditional sense of community is gone, meaning like there aren't any like villages in sense. People move in and out of town.
I don't talk to my neighbors.
People, yeah, exactly, right. So you have to go out for.
That's
community.
interesting, yeah.
And people find community online, I think, more than anywhere else nowadays, which is weird because they're scattered all over and you don't know who you're really talking to.
Yeah. I've done meetups. There's a podcast in California that me and a bunch of people listen to, and during the pandemic, we were all doing a video call, and then we would meet up, like
to discuss.
Well, we would just we all became friends because we all had that common interest, which was that podcast, and then we all kind of, not all of us, but a lot of us became friends, and now I co-host the sports podcast with one of the guys. Some of them flew up to come see the one person show. Like, it's this weird community that is formed because of this internet thing, which is weird because. Yeah, my community, I would say, is the super secret program I'm in or comedy.
Right.
It's not my neighbors.
Sure.
Which is bizarre because I see them all the time.
It is wild.
We don't speak to each other.
Right.
Not in like a mean way. It's just,
sure. No, you just kind of want to. It's almost like a respect thing. It's like you want them to have their own space.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to have your own space.
I don't want you bothering me, so I'm not going to bother you.
Seinfeld's one of my favorite shows, but nowadays it really stresses me out how much Kramer comes over.
Yeah.
I know, I would lose my mind.
And how he just barges in. I'm always like, knock on the door.
And they're always going to do things with each other. Yeah. That would just never happen in my life. You go do that.
And it's also really negative.
What's that?
A Seinfeld as a show.
Oh, big time.
But especially because I started watching with my kid, and it's like, man, this is how they speak about people.
They're all selfish and they tear people down for the littlest things.
Yeah. And it's great. But it's like it's almost like rooted in evil.
It is, but the reason why it was great is because there was nothing else like that beforehand.
Yeah.
Not really.
Right.
And then there was like just almost a celebration or a relief, like, oh, people get on my nerves.
Yeah.
And then we talked about in our second episode, it then became like, okay, this is the ultimate way I'm going to live my life. I really do think it comes down to Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm that people started saying, and now that there's cameras everywhere, it's like, I'm going to win this moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to stuff this guy.
I'm
going to dunk on this fucking guy in real life.
Right.
Someone's going to film it. We're going to put it online, and this guy's going to he's going to get it.
Right.
It's really weird. It's really evolved into winning every single moment.
Yeah.
Whereas you could just be like, all right, this annoys me, but deep breath. gonna walk away.
Right.
You know,
right,
and some
right.
people tell you that's unhealthy. I don't think it is.
Oh my God, this all makes so much sense. I grew up watching Seinfeld.
Yeah,
and I'm a very zero-sum, have to win.
Yeah, and I'm
George.
I've been noticing it recently. I've been watching it recently. I've been like, this is really funny, but like I took this too seriously.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm just coming to that realization where it's like George all the time is like, no, everyone has to know I won.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, I think that's what made Kramer so endearing is the fact that I think he's the only positive character.
He is. He's down for whatever.
Yeah,
he's open to whatever.
He doesn't he likes the people that nobody likes.
Mm-hmm.
Even what's that episode with the girl with the wavy hair?
Yeah, he's like, you got great hair.
Yeah,
and even when he criticizes that girl's nose, he doesn't say you need to get an. Well, he does say you need to get a no job, but he's not nonchalant about it. He's like, you would just need to do that if you wanted something different.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to. It's no big deal.
Yeah, it doesn't come.
And it's not going to make you happy.
Yeah, it doesn't come from any.
Like, no, you just need to do that if you want.
Yeah.
No, he's the ultimate, and even
he's the balance of the three, which is quite insane.
Because he's judged the hardest as being like the biggest loser.
Yeah,
right. But to
Cosmo Kramer,
his clothes are the only ones that hold up too. By the way,
right?
His clothes are kind of timeless.
Yeah,
where everybody else's clothes look like really weird.
Yeah,
and he's and I think that's why a lot of kids love Kramer because he's the only goofy, positive, fun, animated, cartoonish.
George is my guy, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Everyone
George,
relates to
which
George.
is not a good thing.
No, but everyone relates to George because
hilarious.
we all have these thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, but probably shouldn't behave that way.
Yeah. But we also have.
He takes the money out of the tip jar.
We're all petty, you know. We're all petty.
Well, I put money in there, but you didn't see that.
Yeah, it's like Kramer bringing the pennies. It's like that's what a kid would do. Like you don't take pennies. Like,
and no matter what anyone else is doing, Kramer's up for it.
Oh yeah,
right.
Let's go.
Right,
giddy up.
The East River.
I think we got to wrap it up. To get back to our other responsibilities. But thanks for listening and donate on Patreon. Information in the outro. Thanks for listening to The Power of How. Music by Daniel Torado. Artwork by Nelson Diaz. Follow us on all the social medias at The Power of How Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe. And check us out at patreon.com/The Power of How Podcast. Send us some positive vibes in the form of U.S. currency. See you next week, everybody.